Today's topic is transport of carbon dioxide in blood. The deoxygenated blood is transported from the right heart to the lungs. In lungs, the deoxygenated blood is oxygenated, and from the lungs, the oxygenated blood is transported to the left heart, and from the left heart, the oxygenated blood is delivered or supplied to the body. So, as we have discussed in the transport of oxygen lecture, we now know the partial pressure of oxygen in the oxygenated blood is 100 millimeter of mercury. What is the partial pressure of oxygen in the lungs? It is 104 millimeter of mercury. So we also discuss about the venous admixture of blood, that is the deoxygenated blood from the right heart, some little quantity goes into bronchial circulation and it will deliver the blood to the deep structures of the lungs and drains back into the oxygenated blood, and that is known as venous admixture of blood. Because of the venous admixture of the blood, the partial pressure of the oxygen in the oxygenated blood will drop to 95 millimeter of mercury. In the oxygenated blood carried by the arteries, the partial pressure of oxygen is 95 millimeter of mercury. So when it enters the capillary or the muscle tissue, what happens here, as we have discussed already, the oxygen is delivered into the tissue cells. The cells in the tissue need oxygen for the metabolism. What do you mean by metabolism? Metabolism means breakdown of larger compounds or larger molecules. The cells break down the larger compounds or larger molecules with the help of oxygen. After the breakdown, carbon dioxide is produced. After the breakdown of glucose, carbon dioxide is produced. This carbon dioxide is picked up again in the blood. So now what happens? The oxygen is delivered to the tissues and carbon dioxide is picked up. So the oxygen level in the blood is decreased and carbon dioxide level is increased. So the partial pressure of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood, that is the blood which contains high carbon dioxide, is 40 millimeter of mercury. So as we have discussed already, the hemoglobin saturation in the oxygenated blood is 100%. This is the oxygenated blood. Due to the venous admixture of blood here, the hemoglobin saturation drops to 97% from 100. So now what is the hemoglobin saturation in the oxygenated blood carried by the arterial system? It is 97%. So once the oxygen is delivered to the tissues and carbon dioxide is picked up by the oxygen, the blood becomes deoxygenated blood. That means increased carbon dioxide and decreased oxygen. So in deoxygenated blood, the hemoglobin, in the hemoglobin pocket, 3 pockets are already filled with the oxygen molecules. So when 3 pockets are already filled with the oxygen molecules, what is the hemoglobin saturation? It is 75%. So from 97% in the oxygenated blood. After the delivery of oxygen, the hemoglobin saturation becomes 75% in the deoxygenated blood carried by the venous system to the right heart. So here this is a muscle, and here you have artery which joins arteriole, then the capillary of the tissue. From the capillary join the venules, then the veins. So here is the tissue, and cells are present inside the tissue. The space between the tissue and the capillary is known as interstitial fluid. So after the breakdown or after the metabolism inside the cells, carbon dioxide are produced. How this carbon dioxide is transported from the cells into the blood? So know that carbon dioxide is not directly produced into the blood. The carbon dioxide is delivered into the interstitial fluid, and from interstitial fluid the carbon dioxide is picked up by the blood. So how this transport occurs? This transport occurs because of the property of the lipid solubility of the carbon dioxide. Now what do you mean by lipid solubility? Lipid solubility means carbon dioxide can pass through the lipids. That is the simple diffusion. As we have discussed, simple diffusion, you can see the simple diffusion, that is from the higher concentration to the lower concentration, as discussed in the partial pressure of oxygen before. So with this help, the carbon dioxide is diffused from the cells into the interstitial fluid, and from the interstitial fluid into the blood. And also know that the lipid solubility of carbon dioxide is 25 to 27 times higher than the oxygen. Now how much amount of oxygen is delivered to the tissues? As we have discussed already, in 100 milliliter of blood, 5 milliliter of oxygen content is delivered to the tissues. In 1000 milliliter of blood, 50 ml is delivered. In 5000 milliliter of blood, 250 ml of oxygen content is delivered to the tissues. So a left ventricle in a normal human body, it pumps 5 liter of blood per minute. That means 250 milliliter of blood is delivered to the tissues. So now what is the carbon dioxide content picked up from the tissues into the blood? So it is 200 ml carbon dioxide per minute in a normal resting person is picked up from the tissues into the carbon dioxide. Now you may ask, 250 milliliter of oxygen is delivered to the tissues, and after the metabolism there should be 250 ml of carbon dioxide. But in reality there is only 200 milliliter of carbon dioxide produced after the metabolism. Why and what happens there? See here, in metabolism of glucose, take glucose. In metabolism of glucose, the cells with the help of oxygen produce carbon dioxide and water. So now we already discussed that metabolism happens inside the tissues. So why do cells need to break the bigger compounds or bigger molecules? So why do cells need this metabolism? Because during metabolism and energy is produced. Cells need energy. So if cells need energy, the cells will take the energy by breakdown of larger molecules. In this case, the cells will break the glucose with the help of oxygen, and in biochemistry you have studied this as the glycolysis, the breakdown of glucose, where ADP is converted into ATP, and this ATP deliver energy to the tissue cells. See here, not all oxygen molecules are converted into carbon dioxide. Some oxygen molecules get converted into water. That's why when 250 ml of oxygen gets delivered in the tissue, after the breakdown only 200 ml of carbon dioxide is produced. I hope you understand now. So now we will see, in deoxygenated blood the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mm of mercury. So what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood? It is 40 mm of mercury. What is the partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood? It is 100 mm of mercury, and after the venous admixture of blood it drops to 95 mm of mercury. So what is the amount of carbon dioxide carried in the arterial blood? It is 48 milliliter per deciliter. Deciliter means 1 liter. So now what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the venous blood, that is in the deoxygenated blood? It is 48 mm of mercury. What is the partial pressure of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood? It is 40 mm of mercury. What is the amount of carbon dioxide in the deoxygenated blood? It is 52 ml per deciliter. Here you can see the amount of carbon dioxide in arterial blood is 48 and it increased to 52. Why there is an increase in the amount of carbon dioxide? Because when oxygen is delivered into the tissues, there is production of carbon dioxide from the tissue and it is delivered into the blood. So 4 ml of carbon dioxide is picked up from the tissues by the blood. So there is an increase in the 4 ml. So now the pH of an arterial blood is 7.40. We have discussed this in the previous lecture, transport of oxygen in blood. The pH in the venous blood is 7.36. Only difference of 0.4 between the pH of arterial blood and venous blood. So what is the normal pH? It is 7. So the normal pH is 7. Whenever there is carbon dioxide, that means there is increased acid. That means the pH drops. That is, the pH drops to attain this acid level. So here you see there is carbon dioxide in the venous blood, so the pH drops. There is no carbon dioxide, so the pH will attain the alkali state. If it wants to attain the alkali state, it goes to higher side to attain the alkali state. We will discuss here how carbon dioxide is transporter. So the carbon dioxide from the tissue cells is transported into the interstitial fluid, and from interstitial fluid the carbon dioxide goes to the membrane of the RBCs. Inside RBCs, this carbon dioxide combines with the water inside the RBC to form carbonic acid, that is H2CO3. So in biochemistry you know that if there is a reaction, then the reaction always need an enzyme. So the enzyme, important enzyme here that helps the conversion of carbon dioxide and water to carbonic acid is carbonic anhydrase. And you can see this carbonic anhydrase only inside the RBCs and not in the interstitial fluid. This carbonic anhydrase, it speed up the reaction of the conversion of carbon dioxide and water. So after the conversion, the carbonic acid is converted into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate with the same carbonic anhydrase enzyme. So if this happens for a long time, what happened here is the bicarbonate will increase inside the RBCs. So in order to maintain the concentration gradient, the increased bicarbonate will shift outside the RBC. Now this hydrogen ion, we will discuss about hydrogen ion. We have discussed already that hemoglobin molecule, if it circulates in the blood in the body, it is highly toxic molecule and it can damage the nephrons in the kidney, and also it can cause damage to other part of the body. So the hemoglobin is naturally binded with the RBC, so it will not cause damage. In the same way, this hydrogen ion damage, if it goes freely in the circulation, it will damage the cell membrane, nucleus, and the important character of hydrogen ion is increasing the acidity. There should be someone to hold this hydrogen ion. So here comes the hemoglobin. In hemoglobin we have discussed, so the hemoglobin has a globin chain. The globin chain is made up of amino acids, and a type of amino acid, that is histidine amino acids, has a hook like structure, like a fish hook to catch a fish. This hook will catch the excess hydrogen ions inside the RBCs with the hemoglobin. In this way there won't be increase in bicarbonate and increase in hydrogen ion. So this is the effect of carbon dioxide coming into the RBC and the effect of carbon dioxide on RBC and hemoglobin. So in the amino acid, histidine amino acid is a negative charge, and this hydrogen ion is a positive charge, so both will attract together. So when this bicarbonate will shift outside, if it shift outside continuously, there will be increase in the bicarbonate during a long run. So what happens is, whenever the bicarbonate comes outside, there will be chloride ion goes inside the cells, and this happens with the help of a small protein band in the RBC. This protein band will detect whenever there is shifting of bicarbonate outside. It will release the chloride ion from the interstitial fluid into the RBC. Whenever the chloride ion goes inside, water will also give company to the chloride ion. So whenever the bicarbonate comes outside, chloride ion and water will go inside the RBC. So if water goes inside the RBC will be swollen, that is, it will become fat. That's why in venous blood, that it is in the oxygenated blood, there is increased hematocrit, that is increase in the volume of the RBC. When water enters the RBC will swell. That's why the size of the RBC become bigger in the venous blood. So as we discussed earlier, this is a hemoglobin structure, and these are histidine amino acids with the hooks. These histidine amino acids with the hooks is negatively charged, so it will attract the positive charged hydrogen ions. So that's how the equilibrium is maintained inside the RBCs. So when carbon dioxide attach with this hemoglobin, what happens is this hemoglobin becomes carbaminohemoglobin. We have seen here that carbon dioxide in the membrane of the RBC combines with the water to form bicarbonate and hydrogen ion, and in doing so there will be increase in bicarbonate ion and hydrogen ion, and this bicarbonate will shifted outside, and this hydrogen ion will get attached to the hemoglobin. In a way, there won't be any increase in hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. And also this carbon dioxide in the membrane also get attached or combined with the hemoglobin. So this is the amino chain. In the globin chain is made up of amino acids. So this is the amine part, NH2. This is the acid part, amino acid. So globin chain is made up of amino acid. So I have discussed this part. So this is carbon dioxide, CO2. Carbon dioxide combines with the hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. So now what is the function of hemoglobin? We know already that hemoglobin first function is oxygen transport, and it also transport carbon dioxide. What do you mean by buffering? Buffering, that is acid base balance, means whenever there is an increase in the hydrogen ion inside the RBCs, the hemoglobin function is to attach this hydrogen ion to its hook. That way there won't be any increased acid in the RBC, so there will be acid base balance. So now also know that not only oxygen molecule from the lungs come into the blood, there are also other gases such as nitric oxide that come along with the oxygen from the lungs into the blood. So this hemoglobin, what it will do is it will combine with the nitric oxide and it will dilate the arterioles. Where do you see these arterioles? In the arterial system, the oxygenated blood is carried by the arteries, and before entering the capillary of the tissue, it will go into the arterioles, then into the capillary of the tissue. So the hemoglobin with nitric oxide, it will dilate means it will expand the arteriole, they expand the space so that more oxygenated blood will enter the capillary. So these are the four functions of hemoglobin: oxygen transport, carbon dioxide transport, helps in the buffering, that is acid base balance, and dilation of arterioles. So the total amount of oxygen delivered into the tissue is 5 ml. And the total amount of carbon dioxide gets picked up from the tissue into the blood is 4 milliliter. Now we will discuss how this 4 milliliter of carbon dioxide gets transported from the tissue cells into the blood. We have discussed already, this is a tissue and cells. From the tissue cell, carbon dioxide is released into the interstitial fluid of the tissue. From the interstitial fluid, carbon dioxide goes to the blood. In blood there is blood plasma. So from the blood plasma, the carbon dioxide transported to the RBC. So first the carbon dioxide will go into the interstitial fluid, then in the blood plasma, then into the RBC. So when carbon dioxide go to the RBC, the carbon dioxide will stay in the membrane of the RBC. This is the membrane of the RBC. The carbon dioxide will stay. Some carbon dioxide will combine with water to form bicarbonate, and 90% of carbon dioxide is transported in this bicarbonate form. The remaining 5%, the remaining 10%, 5% is transported in dissolved form. That is, when carbon dioxide is transported from the tissue cells into the interstitial fluid, some amount of carbon dioxide get dissolved in the interstitial fluid. In this form, 5% is transported, and the remaining 5% is transported through carbamino compounds or plasma proteins, such as when carbon dioxide is transported from the tissue cells into the blood, the carbon dioxide in the membrane of the RBC, some carbon dioxide will combine with the hemoglobin to form carbamino hemoglobin. And also when carbon dioxide is transported from the interstitial fluid into the blood, first the carbon dioxide will go into the blood plasma, then from the blood plasma into the RBC. So in the blood plasma, the carbon dioxide combines with the plasma proteins such as albumin, globulin and fibrinogen, etc. In this form, carbon dioxide is transported 5%. So out of 4 ml, how much amount is transported by bicarbonate it is 3.60 milliliter. Out of 4 ml, how much is transported in dissolved form? It is 0.2 milliliter, and the remaining is transported by carbamino compounds or plasma proteins. Now, how carbon dioxide is transported from blood into the lungs? So, as we have discussed earlier, 90% of carbon dioxide is in bicarbonate form and 5% is in dissolved form in the interstitial fluid, in the blood plasma, etc. And another 5% is in carbamino compound form. So here, what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in deoxygenated blood? It is 46 mm mercury. I am really sorry that I have mentioned partial pressure of oxygen as 48. Please correct it. It is 46. So the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in oxygenated blood is 40 mm of mercury, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the lungs is 40 mm of mercury. So as you see, from higher concentration gradient of 46, the carbon dioxide will move into lower concentration gradient of 40 mm of mercury. The carbon dioxide in dissolved form is transported from the blood plasma through pulmonary capillaries into the alveoli of the lungs. So after a few minutes, what happens is there will be low level of carbon dioxide in the blood plasma. So in order to maintain a well balanced level, the carbon dioxide in carbamino compound will shift outside to maintain the balanced level of carbon dioxide in blood plasma. What happens if the carbon dioxide shift outside into the blood plasma? The carbon dioxide level in RBC becomes low. Now where will the RBC get the carbon dioxide? We have discussed already that 90% of carbon dioxide is in bicarbonate form. So now what happens is, with the help of the protein band 3, the bicarbonate will move inside RBC. When doing so, whenever the bicarbonate move inside, the chloride will come outside. Whenever the bicarbonate move outside from the RBC, the chloride ion will move inside and water will also move inside. We discussed this earlier. So the bicarbonate will move inside, and this bicarbonate combines with the hydrogen ion attached in the hook of the hemoglobin to form carbonic acid with the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. This carbonic acid now will converted into carbon dioxide and water with the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. So in such a way, this carbon dioxide, this is how the RBC will get the carbon dioxide, and the level of carbon dioxide inside RBC is maintained. So see here, when the level of carbon dioxide in blood plasma becomes low, the carbon dioxide from carbamino compound will move outside to maintain the level in the blood plasma. When the level of carbon dioxide inside the RBC become low, the carbon dioxide in the 90% of carbon dioxide in bicarbonate form will move into RBC, so that the carbon dioxide inside the RBC will be maintained. So this is what happens in alveoli, and we also know that in alveoli oxygen gets transported into the deoxygenated blood and makes the blood oxygenated. So oxygen molecule transported from the alveoli into the RBC. So we have seen here that carbon dioxide is transported from the blood plasma into the alveoli of the lungs. To maintain the balance of carbon dioxide level in the blood plasma, the carbon dioxide in the carbaminohemoglobin, that is the carbon dioxide with hemoglobin, will move outside. So when oxygen molecule come inside the RBC, now we will have only the hemoglobin. So we will see this here. So the oxygen come inside the RBC, we will have now only the hemoglobin. As we have discussed already, the partial pressure of oxygen in the lungs is 104 millimeter of mercury, and the partial pressure of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood is 40 millimeter of mercury. So the oxygen is transported from a higher concentration gradient to a lower concentration gradient with a partial pressure. So this pressure will move the oxygen molecules into the 4 pockets of the hemoglobin. When oxygen molecule come inside the 4 pockets of hemoglobin, the hydrogen ions which were hooked in the globin chain of hemoglobin will move outside, because whenever there is increase in oxygen, the hydrogen ion will decrease. This hydrogen ion will remain all alone in the RBC, because these oxygen molecules will bind to the hemoglobin, and because of this binding of oxygen to the hemoglobin, the hydrogen ions in the hooks of the globin chain will be removed and it stay alone in the RBC. Whenever there is increase in the hydrogen ion in the RBC, there will be more acidic formation. So we know that in an RBC there are millions of hemoglobin. So what is the function of hemoglobin? Hemoglobin function is oxygen transport, carbon dioxide transport, dilatation of arterioles, and also buffering, acid base balance. So whenever there is an increase in the acidity inside the RBC, there are other hemoglobins present inside the RBCs. It will catch this alone hydrogen ion with itself, so that the acidity formation will not occur inside the RBC and acid base balance is maintained. This whole process occurs in the alveoli of the lungs. When oxygen molecule from the alveoli of the lungs is transported through the pulmonary capillaries into the blood plasma, then into the RBC, this carbon dioxide will automatically move outside. We have discussed this earlier. The transportation of carbon dioxide from the blood into the alveoli, the carbon dioxide level in dissolved form in blood plasma become very low. So this carbon dioxide will move outside to maintain a well balanced level. So in the meantime, the oxygen molecule also enter inside the RBC. When oxygen molecule enter the RBC, hydrogen ion also get detached from the hooks of the hemoglobin and it will go separately into the RBC. So this effect of oxygen and hemoglobin is known as Haldane effect. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin tends to displace oxygen from the blood. So if the same thing happens in peripheral tissue, it is known as Bohr effect. So what do you mean by Bohr effect? When carbon dioxide from the tissue enters the RBC, there will be more hydrogen ion formation and bicarbonate formation. This bicarbonate will move outside, and this hydrogen ion gets picked up by the hooks of the hemoglobin. When hydrogen ion gets picked up, the oxygen molecules in the pockets of the hemoglobin will go outside. So this effect of carbon dioxide on hemoglobin is known as Bohr effect. In conclusion, when carbon dioxide from the tissue enters the RBC, the hydrogen ion will increase, and this, due to the increase in the hydrogen ion, the hemoglobin will attach this hydrogen ion to its hooks. By doing so, the oxygen molecules in the hemoglobin move outside and delivered into the tissues. This is known as Haldane effect. This happens in peripheral tissue. When it comes to lungs, when oxygen from the alveoli of the lungs come inside the RBC to the pockets of the hemoglobin, what happens is the carbon dioxide at the end with the hemoglobin, previously called as carbaminohemoglobin, this carbon dioxide will move outside, and also there are hydrogen ions in the hooks. These hydrogen ions also will move outside. Move outside means they will move separately, but inside the RBCs, they will present inside the RBCs. They are no more attached within the hooks. So this effect of oxygen on hemoglobin is known as Haldane effect. So let me explain with this diagram. In the peripheral tissue, the carbon dioxide from the cells, it enters the interstitial fluid. From the interstitial fluid, it enters the blood, and in blood you have blood plasma. From the blood plasma, the carbon dioxide will move into the RBCs. So when carbon dioxide move into the RBC, 90% of carbon dioxide are transported in bicarbonate forms. So this carbon dioxide combines with the water inside the RBC. With the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme, it will form carbonic acid, H2CO3. Then this H2CO3 is converted into bicarbonate, that is HCO3 minus, and hydrogen ion with the same carbonic anhydrase enzyme. This carbonic anhydrase enzyme is present only inside the RBCs. Then what happens? Carbon dioxide, some carbon dioxide in the RBC membrane will combine with the hemoglobin, that is 5% of carbon dioxide is transported in carbamino compounds. So it will form carbamino compounds, that is carbaminohemoglobin. Now here, when bicarbonate is increased inside the RBC, it will move outside. So here is the protein band 3. With the help of protein band 3, the bicarbonate move outside. Whenever bicarbonate move outside, chloride shift inside. Whenever chloride come inside, it will bring water with it. So here the hydrogen ion will remain in RBC. So what happens is, this hydrogen ion is very toxic ion. So the hemoglobin, the other hemoglobin in the RBC will attach this hydrogen ion to its hook, and it will remain as hydrogen ion hemoglobin. It is known as reduced hemoglobin. Reduced hemoglobin means it can bind oxygen molecules. So what do you mean by this reduced hemoglobin? Reduced hemoglobin is nothing but the hemoglobin with the hydrogen ion in its hook. So the whole structure is known as reduced hemoglobin. In lungs, what happens is the carbon dioxide in dissolved plasma, that is 5% of carbon dioxide is transported in dissolved form, is transported into the alveoli. So the level of carbon dioxide in the blood plasma will become very low. In order to compensate the level of carbon dioxide in blood plasma, we have seen the carbon dioxide from the carbaminohemoglobin, it will move into the blood plasma. So now what happens is the carbon dioxide in the RBC, the carbon dioxide level in the RBC become very low. So in order to compensate the level of carbon dioxide inside the RBC, we have seen 90% of carbon dioxide is transported in bicarbonate form. This bicarbonate, with the help of protein band 3, will move inside. So the process is in reverse. Whenever bicarbonate move inside, chloride ion will move outside. Whenever bicarbonate ion move outside, the chloride ion will move inside with water in interstitial tissue, but in lungs the bicarbonate will move inside. So the bicarbonate alone cannot do anything. So as you have seen earlier, in interstitial tissue, the carbon dioxide with water produce bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. So this hydrogen ion will get attached to the hemoglobin. Like this, there are so many carbon dioxide and water molecules inside the RBC. So this bicarbonate ion, when it come inside the RBC, it will pick any hydrogen ion and it will form carbon dioxide and water with the help of carbonic anhydrase. Basically this is everything the reverse of what happening in the peripheral tissue. In this way, the carbon dioxide level is maintained within the RBC. So in alveoli, the carbon dioxide is transported on one side, and the alveoli, from the alveoli, oxygen is delivered in the blood. So when oxygen comes inside the RBC, we have seen there are hemoglobin with hydrogen ion, reduced hemoglobin, have high affinity for oxygen. This oxygen, when it comes in contact with the hemoglobin, that is reduced hemoglobin, it will form oxyhemoglobin, that is hemoglobin with oxygen, oxygen hemoglobin, oxyhemoglobin, and protons. When the oxygen enters the RBC from the alveoli, it will combine with the this reduced hemoglobin. What is the reduced hemoglobin? Reduced hemoglobin is nothing but a hemoglobin with the protons in its hook. It is reduced hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin have high affinity for oxygen molecule. So it will come here and it will attach with the oxygen molecule to form oxyhemoglobin, that is oxygen and hemoglobin, and protons, that is hydrogen ion. So let us have a summary. So what is the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in lungs and in tissue? Before going into that, what is the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the inspired air? In the inspired air, the partial pressure of oxygen is 160 and carbon dioxide is 0.3. So we inspire more oxygen and less carbon dioxide. In the alveoli of the lungs, we know the partial pressure of oxygen is 104, and in the oxygenated blood the partial pressure is 100. But due to the venous admixture of blood from the bronchial circulation into the oxygenated blood, here this 100 drops to 95. Now we are summarizing only, so we don't have to go in that detail. So the partial pressure of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood is how much? It is 40. Now the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveoli is 40 millimeter of mercury. And what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the oxygenated blood? It is 40 millimeter of mercury. What is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide leaving the tissues? It is 45 or 46. Small fluctuations may happen. That's it for today's topic of transport of carbon dioxide in blood. In both the topics, transport of oxygen in blood and transport of carbon dioxide in blood, oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, carbon dioxide dissociation curve, Bohr effect, Halden effect, these are very important.